Okay. All right, good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of the UW System Board of Regents Executive Committee. We'll begin by having Megan call the roll, please.
Regent Walsh.
Here.
Regent Bogus.
Here.
Regent Atwell. Regent Bechtel. Regent Jones. And Kristen, could you please check the attendees and unmute Regent Jones on the line?
Regent Jones should be unmuted.
Can you
Mike,
hear
are
me?
you there? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
vote.
Thank you, Mike.
You bet. I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Regent Benny Deeds. Regent Miller.
Here.
Regent Rye.
Here.
Regent Weatherly.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you. First off, are there any conflicts of interest with any of the items on today's agenda? And hearing no conflicts, let us proceed. We are going to use a consent agenda for this morning for items 3A and 3B. I would like to pull item 3C, authority to construct minor facilities renewal projects, out of the consent agenda so that we can receive a brief report on one of the items included there.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mike Jones.
Okay, discussion of any of the consent items? Okay, all those in favor of the two consent items, 3A and 3B, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good. Can we refer now, please, to that item 3C? Alex, I will turn to you to give us an update and explain what that's about.
All right, so we have two items in 3C. I'll go quickly through the second one, and then I'm going to turn it over to Cindy Tortsveit, the Associate Vice Chancellor at Madison, for the first one. So at UW Superior, on behalf of Barstow Hall, this is a renovation of laboratory space. It's primarily an HVAC upgrade to their building. However, we'll provide them with modern labs as they need to educate their students. We would like to give you a brief update of some events that have been occurring, unfortunately, at Van Vleck Hall. So I'm going to ask Cindy Tortsveit just to give you a brief overview of what's been going on.
Thank you, Alex. So the project where Van Vleck Hall is, we are requesting approval of an authority to construct of the minor facilities renewal project for a multi-building exterior envelope repair project. This project replaces failed building envelope elements on Lathrop Hall and Van Vleck Hall. The Lathrop Hall project work includes window refurbishment, installation of storm windows, exterior stone repairs, and metal cornice repairs at Van Vleck Hall. The project work includes repairs to precast and concrete cladding, sealant joints, and soffit. The building envelopes have been deteriorating over the years and water damage has been evident. Additionally, last week, small chips of concrete were discovered on Van Vleck's Plaza, which is at the first floor level right next to Bascom in the exterior area. Upon inspection, it was determined that this was all part of the building facade, and out of an abundance of caution, we have restricted access to the Van Vleck Hall entrances and exits, and we have put barricades around the exterior to restrict access and secure and redirect pedestrian traffic around the building. We're working with our partners at System and DOA to install fencing and some scaffolding with canopy at those entrances and exits. A little bit of a mouthful with lots of ease. So to ensure that we have safety for all of the pedestrians that use the building. The building is still occupied and is still being used, and we do have accessible pathways to and from the building, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Cindy, are the stairs that come up from the Charter Street side up between Bascom and Van Vleck, are any of those areas in the blocked off part?
They are not. So you can take those main stairs up, and in fact, one of the west side entrances out of the west side of the building is one of the areas that we're directing people to. It's really the entrances underneath the tower. So it's
Okay.
that tall tower area where the windows are, and these pieces kind of come out around the windows, and the concrete is chipping away from rusting rebar that's in there. So we wanted to restrict that particular area.
Okay, thank you. I just recall those steps from my student days as being a super highway during class change.
Yes, yes.
Thank
That's
you.
why we wanted to make sure this was
Yeah.
safe.
Any other questions regarding item 3C that was pulled from the consent agenda? All right, may I have a motion to approve item 3C?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. Regent Rye.
Other discussion? Yep, thank you. Yeah, hearing no other discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you. All right, we are moving along to item number 4, the appointment of Natalie Erdman to the University Research Parks Design and Review Board at UW-Madison. Alex Rowe, please give us an overview.
So in anticipation of the development back in 1983, the UW Board of Regents directed the creation of a design review board to review all future construction at the University Research Park. Research Park was established in 1984, and it is an affiliate of the university located on the west side of Madison. The regional appointment is Kyle Weatherly at this time. The design review board's existing 4 seats are filled with members who have expertise in architecture, landscape architecture, and urban planning. This board is independent of the URP's 11-member board of trustees, of which Regent Weatherly is the current board representative. Every time an existing board member steps down from the board, the remaining members are allowed to nominate a successor, subject to Board of Regents approval. It has been a few years since you've actually had to do this, and so this is the first time in, I think, 4 or 5 years. The board has nominated Natalie Erdman to fill the vacant position. You should have her CV in your packet. She worked for years at the City of Madison as the Director of Planning. She is a real estate developer and commercial lender. And I'm going to turn this over to Aaron Oliver, the Executive Director of the Research Park.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Hi, my internet connection is not great here, so I apologize. I can turn off my video if it's a problem. But Natalie is somebody who was identified by our design review board as a complement to our existing team. She has a background in real estate development, which we've traditionally had on this board. We've oftentimes had a 5th seat filled by a banker, a developer, a business person, somebody like that. And Natalie has an interesting blend of experience both as a lender, a commercial lender, as a real estate developer herself. And of course, she has deep ties with the City of Madison, where she ran the Community Development Authority and the Department of Planning, Community and Economic Development. So I'm really excited that when we reached out to her on behalf of the Design Review Board, that she expressed an interest in getting involved. So she's just a tremendous individual and a tremendous professional, and we're really lucky that she's willing to invest her time. This is a volunteer position, and in fact, to protect the university, our bylaws are very strict that we're not allowed to compensate board members in any way. So we're really excited to get somebody of her caliber. And I'm happy to take any questions about Natalie or about the Design Review Board or URP.
Questions for Aaron or Alex? Before we discuss, then, can I have a motion to approve Resolution 4?
So moved, Weatherly.
Okay,
Second, Mike
and is there
Jones.
a second? Okay, second, Mike Jones. Any other discussion related to, the only question I have, and I don't know if either of you knows the answer to this, any relation to Joyce Erdman?
She's Dan's husband, Dan Erdman's, wife, sorry. And so that's
I
Marshall's
thought
son.
so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so
ditto
good
with
UW
whatever.
pedigree.
Yeah. And I'm really happy that she said yes. So I think she'll be a
Great.
great addition. So
Great. Other questions, comments? All right, hearing none, those in favor of approving the appointment, please say aye.
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 Opposed? And the motion carries. Welcome to the Research Park Board to Natalie. And
Thank you.
please do extend our thanks to her for taking this on. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, on to item 5, UW La Crosse Authority to construct the Graff main hall HVAC system. And once again, I'm going to call on Alex Rowe to take us through.
So I do want to thank all of you for taking the time today to do this. I know you're very busy people, and I really appreciate it because the State Building Commission meeting is next week, and without your approval, these projects could not go before them. So we really do appreciate this. So on behalf of UW La Crosse, Graff Main Hall, the oldest building on campus, 1909. This is a 2019, 2011, 2019, 2021 enumeration. It has taken us a while to get here. Essentially, we're going to renovate all of the HVAC systems in this hall and on this original building. Renovation did occur in 1979, but no significant work has taken place since. The main heating distribution system runs along the exterior wall under the windows, and the units are more than 50 years old. The system itself is more than 40 years old. And so we're going to replace outdated and outmoded equipment, put in new variable air volume so that Chancellor and his team might actually have comfortable temperatures in that building, and replace all the air handling units throughout, new fans, exhaust systems, and control measures. This is a major project, and that's my report.
Okay, before we discuss, may I have a motion to approve Resolution 5?
So moved.
And is there a second?
second.
All right, questions for Alex or discussion of this project? Hearing none? Yeah, I will call the question. All in favor of approval of Resolution 5 signify by saying aye. Aye.
I
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. All right. And I think that is on to the next thing. We are on to item number 6, enhancing our governance functions. This is the last item on the agenda, but I do want to start out by thanking the Special Regent Committee on Governance Issues that Regent President Many Deeds appointed last year and was chaired by Regent Emerita Tracy Klein. If you'll remember, those included updates to RPD 64 related to the Chancellor search process, which gives the board leadership the option to tweak the size of a search committee and composition. Also, updates to the new Regent onboarding policy and discussion about the best practices for evaluating both the system president and the chancellors. And that's being guided currently by the UWSA HR office. So thank you for those, for that work. We do recognize it. So there are a couple of things I wanted to discuss today related to how we should move forward and whether a separate governance committee is what we need now for this board going forward. So some of the items that we need to consider are review of bylaws and policies. And I can tell you that from talking to Jess and to Megan, that we have a number of policies and bylaws that are sorely in need of review. Also, annual assessment of the board operation and its committees, making sure we're aligned with the system strategic plan and the priorities of our board. Also, Regent onboarding and our ongoing development of Regents, and do we need to tweak that program? Again, annual evaluation of the system president, that is in the hands of the Board of Regents. A few possibilities that Regent Vice President Bogus and I have discussed. Number one is the possibility of assigning some of these governance duties to the executive committee. This committee is already empowered to act on behalf of the board as a whole on most matters, Also, the membership of this board is really the leaders, I think, and stars of the board who are uniquely equipped to make these kinds of decisions. So the question is this committee, does this committee have enough time as we look to explore whether or not we would be exercising most of the governance functions? Another possibility that we thought of was to appoint a smaller committee, probably of regents in law, who would review our bylaws, and that would be done with the assistance of, for example, both the Regent office and the General Counsel's office, to come up with a list of prioritized bylaws and policies that they feel we need to address. So that would remove some of that work from the executive committee, get it through the small committee, then they would present the executive committee with a list of board policy and bylaw adjustments that they would recommend. So I'd like to open it up for discussion. Anybody's reaction to this? Are you comfortable with the possible additional work? You know, right now this committee meets maybe 4 times a year, usually very briefly to, for example, the projects that we looked at today that required approval before a state building commission meeting. Sometimes it's salary adjustments, for example, for coaches. We've met on that. So we might be adding a few meetings to this list. So I'd like to open it up for discussion, reactions to any of these options.
Karen, I guess 2 points. You know, a separate committee will still involve a lot of people on this committee being on that committee. So it seems like it's a redundant aspect or structure, although you could draw more people in. And my second point is, as long as we're giving more work to the lawyers on the board, I'm always going to be happy about that.
I really don't like that second point. I like the first point. We're all doing everything anyways, so I'm just saying that it's not necessarily maybe. Oh, Scott, I didn't hear what you were saying, Scott.
I was just objecting on the record to Regent Rye's comment.
Yes.
I'll take all the COVID and monkeypox questions for the rest of my time on the board if you guys do the bylaws. How's that? Is that right?
Yeah, well, now I'm not saying that non-lawyers cannot function well on a committee like that, but I've been given to understand that lawyers are particularly interested in bylaws and policies and uniquely positioned to review such things.
Lawyers are generally a pain in the ass.
That was Regent Jones, for anybody who wondered who that was.
That's the truth.
So is
In
there...
all seriousness, Karen, I do feel like, you know, what you listed out, some of it is ad hoc work to kind of reset. You know, it's been a long time since it's been looked at. All of that work would have to come through here and then go to the board anyway. So it just seems like even this group could parse out some of those things, such as bylaws to lawyers or whatever that may be. But it seems like creating a separate, you know, committee structure, which then involves, as you know, more than I do, a lot more work. It just seems like not all of this work is continuous, and it'll could be accomplished by this committee.
Well, the ingenious part of this small committee is they might have to meet once or twice in a year, because the goal is that the tip of the iceberg popping up is this group. Underneath it all is the work of the Regent office and the General Counsel to prepare the materials, answer the questions. So I'm not saying it's a rubber stamp. I'm just saying a lot of the work is going to come to the committee already parsed out for them. So it's not a huge, I don't think it's a huge task, and the committee would be able to decide, well, we're going to make these 5 things a priority and move those through. Reactions to that?
I was just going to say quickly, I think that's the key though, is to parse out what is it that we want to take a look at, right? What policies, what bylaws are important to us. And I think that's where the work is. And then have legal look at all of that and see what we can do, what we can move on. So I don't know if it makes sense for us to have like a couple of people like perhaps Ashok and Scott look at like what we want to parse out. So
John, Amy.
John,
John, you look like you were going to say something there.
Well, first, I just want to say I'm glad that it's continuing because having been a member of it, I thought it was very useful and produced good work. So that's a good thing. Well, the question I had is, will there be somebody sort of quasi in charge of it, or will it be you, Karen, or I mean, just in terms of like,
John,
finding things, setting what, because there could be a list of 10 things that we want to look at. Does it, do we prioritize them? Does it, sort of like the role Tracy was playing prior.
Right. Are you talking about bylaws and policies in particular, or some of the other activities that we would take on?
I guess I was the whole bucket.
Okay. Yeah, I think as a bucket, most likely Amy and I with the Regent office are going to look at this and say, okay, we have the following things that would have been done in a governance committee meeting. These need to be done by this date. Let's set a meeting and get the materials out to people. One thing that Megan, Amy, and I have discussed related to this is that the bylaw review would be a regularly scheduled item. So that, we would know, say, every November that the bylaw committee is going to convene the exec to give us a list of bylaws, whatever the schedule would be. So I think that, and I know Megan has an idea of some crucial ones that she feels we need to address sooner rather than later. So if we do that part of it on a continuous basis, I think we'll be in good shape to catch up. As far as these other things, I think as a exec committee, we need to discuss how we're going to move forward with the evaluation of the system president, who is now 4 boxes away to my right. And wouldn't be attending this meeting if we were evaluating him. But that is definitely something that we would take up without President Rothman present. And we've also had some questions about chancellor evaluations and how those might occur. Jay, I know we've had some leadership discussions about how we could tweak that. Would you mind sharing with the exec committee what you've been observing?
Yes. No, what I am proposing to do with the chancellors in particular is to develop a template, and we're working on that right now, that once I have a draft done, I can certainly share. But really a template of what the expectations are, and then go back and there'll be standard expectations across the board, and then have specific KPIs for each chancellor that will be specific to their respective universities, so that we would have a basis on which to evaluate. And what I'm trying to figure out is, how do we tie that back to how do we make compensation determinations? Because I know that is a fair question to be asking, but we're in the process of trying to develop something at least that would work on that standpoint. As it relates to mine, and certainly not suggesting that I would dictate this, but I have already put together some thoughts around KPIs for me that I haven't shared more broadly, but it would be helpful at some point to have this committee consider those as well, to make sure that we're aligned in terms of what your expectations are of me. And certainly, as Regent President Walsh indicated, that when you evaluate that, I will certainly not be in the room, but certainly would want to have that the dialogue around when those are set. And I'd be prepared to have that dialogue whenever you'd like, because I think I've gotten them sufficiently well defined at this point from my perspective that it would be helpful to have the input of the committee.
Okay, when is the next scheduled chancellor evaluation that you anticipate doing?
My expectation would be, I want to get the template put together and the objectives put, and I think that the actual evaluation would occur next spring. So we're not going to have a full year in terms of working with the template and the KPIs, but we need to get the normal cycle would be to do it, I think, in March or April of each year, is my understanding what it's been historically done.
Do you think that it would be practical for the executive committee to meet maybe September or early October to discuss both what you've developed for the chancellors and what you've developed for your own evaluation? Does that seem possible?
Yeah, I think that is doable. Yes.
Okay. questions or comments for President Rothman on these evaluations? I think you can see that we're trying to avoid the giving of large stacks of tiny font tables of information about people and really get down to what are they doing effectively and what do they need to improve on. Questions or suggestions on that for President Rothman?
Yeah, this is Scott. I like the idea very much of the executive committee dealing with these issues. I think we've not done the job we all want to do as Board of Regents on the evaluation of the UW system president. And so I think we're probably best suited to make that recommendation back to our colleagues. And then same thing, just be a sounding board for Jay on the chancellor evaluations. So I see that working hand in glove, and all of us on this call have been about that issue and have been very engaged in it. So I think we could do that very efficiently and make a recommendation to our colleagues.
Great. Megan, will the plan to for the method of evaluating the system president, will that be something that needs to be a bylaw change or a policy? I don't know what exists right now because in my 3 years on the board, I've never been asked to evaluate the system president in any way.
It wouldn't be a bylaws change, I wouldn't think. Potentially it could be a region policy.
Okay.
We have one in place at the moment, but I understand that the HR office is looking at some different proposals for the board to consider.
Okay, I'm wondering if it might not be practical to, I know the September agenda is kind of in its formative stages now. I wonder if it would be practical if we had the executive committee meet early in September and then come back to the board at the September meeting with our plan to evaluate President Rothman.
I think we can check with HR on that.
Okay.
Karen,
Somebody was, yes.
If we could get a little bit of prep in writing from Jay before that meeting, it would be a little bit more efficient.
Absolutely.
Just kind of, the construct of what he's looking at.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think, Region President Walsh, I think my guess is there may be two pieces to this. One would be whatever you'd want to adopt for key performance indicators for the role of president. And then the second piece, and obviously those would go in place and presumably I would be evaluated on whether or not I hit those or not. And then I don't know if you were thinking of a second evaluation piece that's really outside of those KPIs, which I think is where Tracy Klein was going at one point. And I'm fine with either one, but I think that may be something that that may be the process that Megan may work through with HR. I think they're related, but they're a little bit different in terms of their structure, because the KPIs would be very specific action items. At least that's what I'm envisioning them to be. But of course, that's totally up to the direction this committee wants to give me.
Right. Thoughts on that from the committee?
Okay.
Can I just clarify?
I don't, it's Mike Jones. I don't know that we need two separate evaluations, but I'm not objecting to that, but I just don't see why it would be necessary. I would much more, you have to focus on the what Jay has accomplished and how he did it. And those are equally important outcomes. And so I wouldn't unwrap them.
What about areas for improvement? Does that feel like it would flow out of that?
Yes, because the improvement, you hit your KPI, but you really aggravated everybody along the way and destroyed the team spirit or whatever. So yeah, it could be related to the what or the how.
Okay.
Mike, I didn't think you were going to evaluate me so soon, but that's okay.
Oh boy, no, good point, Mike. Thank you. I think that's probably a very cogent observation here for this. Other thoughts on President?
Yeah, Karen, it's Kyle. Have we ever discussed? Hi, have we ever discussed doing 360 reviews of region presidents, or is there any history of that? It seems that excuse me, not the region president, far be it from me, the system president. It seems to me that there's a number of constituents for us to serve, And
Mhm.
oftentimes regents are asked to read tea leaves based off of, ad hoc conversations with chancellors, community members, etc. I think it would be only fair if we had a bit more well-rounded, rather than
Mhm.
anecdotal analysis that we could bring to the table.
Okay, so Kyle, what are you suggesting? Are you suggesting that we pick a slate of people to have private discussions with? Is that what you're suggesting, or am I missing the mark here?
I would defer to our HR team in terms of what's best practice. But typically speaking, a CEO running a company the size of this, I would look at the cost of engaging an outside firm to do an annual 360 review to report to us. I don't know what the appetite for that is. The other committee members.
Mhm.
I also, frankly, don't have a terrible amount of experience with what the cost is, so I don't know if it is cost prohibitive. But I would be interested in learning more.
Okay, Megan, could you see what you can find just by way of information about potential cost? I don't know who does those. I don't know if, for example, Whit Kiefer or one of the other search companies we work with does executive evaluations. It seems to me, I remember vaguely that at least Whit Kiefer does, and there might be some other folks that do them too. Ashok, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I really like Kyle's idea, and I think, any CEO deserves a 360 evaluation at, multiple levels of the organization. I would just like Quinn's opinion on this as far as open records go. What are we not thinking about in a situation like that, especially if we're bringing in an outside firm, comments from our favorite people in a domed building down the street. I just want to make sure we think through all that. I really do like Kyle's idea to do 360.
Yep.
And I've used both internal and external resources in my career on a variety of boards, including my, how I get evaluated. But I just want to make sure that we've kind of talked this through with Quinn or given him some time to think about it, because unintended consequences with open records in our legislatures are what I think we always try to avoid.
Yes, good point. I can tell you that when we used to get these stacks of tables related to each chancellor's performance, those are always reviewed in closed session and they're closed session documents. So I suspect this might, such a 360 eval like Kyle and you are talking about, I think it probably would fall under the same rules, but Megan, I'll ask you to check with Quinn on that and see if he has any concerns going forward. And if it's appropriate, then maybe he can come to the next meeting of the executive committee where we discuss this and give us any information he feels we need to have.
And Quinn, right? He's Quinn. Is he on right now or no?
I am.
Okay.
Oh, hi, Quinn.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, Quinn. I just want to make sure you heard that. That's all.
Yeah, but why not? Let's put him on the spot.
No, I'll take a look at that, Karen, and we'll research it and we'll get back to you on it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I appreciate it. So moving forward, go ahead. Was there someone else that wanted to speak?
Yeah, this is Scott. I just want
Okay.
to just throw a little caution on the idea of a 360 review. We've appointed the president. He reports to us. We are going to be moving. I mean, we're always in challenging times, and I just don't know. I'm really thinking about the wisdom and utility of a 360 review where chancellors are reviewing the work of the president. We're going to be going through some decisions where I think, I'm not afraid of the data or afraid of the communications. We all get communicated with quite a bit already with the chancellor, good way. We have liaisons to the campuses, so we're getting those inputs. But to formalize it and then to make a record of it, throw some caution to that idea.
Okay.
I think that's an excellent point, Scott, because that's what was going through my head. I'm concerned about that.
Okay.
So.
This is Mike Jones.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Mike Jones, I worry about that too, but I've still found that there's some value to 360s. You just have to put it in context. If, to understand that not every chancellor is going to think that Jay walks on water, and there might be good reason for that. And sometimes you have to discount what they're saying because of the context of what's going on. But yeah, I take that point. I think it's a good point, but I still think there's some value and utility to a 360.
So I think what we need is for Quinn and for Megan to gather some information for us going forward so that we can review it prior to the next exec meeting and then come to this with questions. Does that seem like a fair way to proceed to everybody? Okay.
I think because all of this is policed under HR, having them as part of that conversation and their expertise as well.
Right. And, you know, to understand here, we're taking up a task that I don't think hasn't been done since I've been on the board. And I don't know prior to that, the last time the system president was evaluated. So I guess we get to create what we think going forward is going to be useful to us. Since, as Scott says, it is our responsibility to evaluate the person in this position, and it hasn't been done. So, all right, then, Anant, can I go back for a moment to the appointment of this bylaws committee? Is there anyone who objects to trying that approach to our bylaws and policies?
Can I just clarify, are you saying, because I know Ashok was saying that we should just do it as a full committee. So are you suggesting that we have a smaller committee to put forward what bylaws and policies, or I just need to clarify.
That is confusing. And let me clarify that. So, you know, I want to be respectful of this committee's time. You know, we're all very busy people. We're already in leadership positions and other areas of regent duties. So adding the whole bylaws piece to this seemed to me like something that a small group of legally minded regents could pare down for us. So we've got kind of an inverted triangle going. So the regent office and general counsel's office come together, look at the bylaws, start pulling out ones that they think we should look at, rank them. It comes down to this bylaws committee. They make the decision of which ones they think should be forwarded. They bring those to the executive committee. We say, yep, we stamp our stamp of approval and say we're taking this to the full board. That was what I had in mind, but I'm open to other suggestions, of course.
Karen, this is Scott. First, thank you for this item 6 and the materials. I found them really useful, and I gave a good amount of thought, as I'm sure we all did, but I thought these were really well done. And I really landed where I think Ashok was, and that is the executive committee is the best committee to start these actions.
Okay.
So that's item 1. Then item 2 is you had an attachment A, which was the functions for the executive committee, or new government, I like executive committee. And there, I'm mindful that we have both bylaws and policies. Policies are dealt with, as I've seen it, through the committee structure, which I think is appropriate. And I just don't know how much bylaw revision really needs to be done. So what I would suggest is why don't we start walking before we run? Let's executive committee as you have it put together. Let's go with attachment A as you have it. If there's a bylaw revisions and, you know, we're getting out the green eye shades and we want a few people to do it, then you could, as a president, just select an ad hoc committee to go chase down these 4 or 5 bylaw provisions. But I don't think we're going to be in that situation, perhaps. And then lastly, I was agnostic on your third point on whether this committee in the executive committee fashion would be meeting 4 times or 6 times. I saw wisdom both, but I was pretty agnostic as to which one. But I would just encourage just to start walking, and then maybe change as we go. But I really like the work product you guys developed.
Okay, well, many thanks to Megan for that. She did a lot of road work for us on it. I think maybe one question we just don't know the answer to yet is, what is the first pass at this by the region office and general counsel going to look like in terms of what's out of date policy-wise or bylaw-wise? So maybe we need to ask them to push that work forward. Once we have a look at that list, I think, Scott, will have the answer to your question of how much work are we really talking about? And then if it is overwhelming, maybe we can Amy and I can pull together some folks from this group if we feel we need to pare that work down. It could be a rather large document, but I'm going to defer to those two offices to come up with a list for us. Does that seem fair? Then let's take a look at what the recommended list is from these from our experts, and then figure out if it makes sense, if it's a small list, if we can just go forward in this committee alone. Does that make sense? Okay.
May I make one ask, please?
Absolutely.
As you consider this, and I applaud the committees moving forward with this, but if you could be mindful just in terms of the speed and the onus that we're putting particularly on, you know, both Megan and Quinn in terms of turning this around and getting it done. It's got to be done, but hopefully we can do it in a process that doesn't overwhelm them, given certainly, I mean, with respect to both of them, they have a lot of other things to do. I just want to make sure we balance that, if that's acceptable to the committee as we approach this.
Oh, absolutely. But these are busy people as well in those two offices, and I'm hopeful that within the offices they can spread the work out enough so that it's not too. We're not asking for this in 2 or 3 weeks. So, Amy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say if it's helpful, because I've talked, you know, over the last year, and some of you that are on the call, certain things that have hindered us moving forward, like chancellor searches. So maybe if anybody's interested, you could throw those ideas to try to hone it down, because there's so many things that I've come across and I've talked to Quinn about, and why is it in existence? So maybe we can kind of pare down priority if anybody, you know, so feels that the desire to do so, but I'm happy to start that dialogue with them so it's not completely overwhelming. So
Okay, I think you and I can commit to helping them work through that and coming up with a good list for the next time that this group meets.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion items related to governance? It sounds like mostly we're comfortable with the governance functions moving to this committee, the executive committee.
Yeah, and Karen, just one other thought.
Yeah.
We all share this comment, but I'm looking at the charge on attachment to consider and report recommendations to the Board of Regents. I just think it's really important that we are humble and that we know that we are serving with also duly elected or duly selected Board of Regents colleagues. And I have the impression that this executive committee is somehow grabbing power or going to be doing in absentia with our fellow colleagues. I know none of us are built that way, but I just, that's a point, Karen, probably really worth your hitting pretty hard on that message point when we talk about this. And then also to each of us on the, you know, serving temporarily in these positions, you know, we're no more, no less than any other colleague on the board.
Exactly. Thank you for that point, Scott. I think that's very well said. And when we present this before the whole board, this shift in the function of the executive committee, I mean, I see our role here as not trying to usurp the power or the activities of the full board, is just to maybe act as either filters or prioritization or other things that we want to bring to the full board. So, you know, as far as what decisions is appropriate for us to make, I think that, you know, the items we discussed earlier today, the projects that needed approval for an emergency because of the capital budget needs and the building commission meeting next week, we all understand that those are appropriate things for our exec to take up. But this is a delicate line because it is a change in how this particular committee will function. So thank you for that, Scott. We will make sure that we communicate that effectively. Any other discussion items related to this? Okay, I think we have gotten through our agenda. We will report back to you as far as when we're going to schedule a meeting to take a look at president evaluation materials and also the chancellor evaluation materials that President Rothman is working with HR to compile. And that'll be our next meeting, I think, in addition to any other things that might pop up. But we'll plan on having that meeting, I think, maybe, I want to say mid-September, but I don't want to interfere too much with the function of preparations for the Regent meeting at the end of September. So if we need to push that to early October, we will definitely do that. Okay, and I will seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second, in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.